Hello Year 5 and welcome to your English lesson today. Now today's lesson is going to be a nice short and easy one because there's no new teaching elements to have for this lesson, but it's an opportunity to go back and reflect on the last few lessons of this week and improve and edit your work, okay? But before we do that, what we're going to do is we're going to recap our Hurricane Sandy video, okay? So I'm just going to show you the first snippet of information. I'm also going to show you another news report based on Hurricane Michael. And what we're going to do is we're going to do a little bit of comparison work about which one we preferred and why. And this is going to be your basis for your work that you are going to do today, okay? So let's just remind ourselves what happened in this video for our Hurricane Sandy.
The destructive power of the superstorm, unleashed after dark as Sandy made landfall. The flooding was instant, the scale shocking. The storm arrived with the high tide in New York Harbor, creating a surge of nearly 14 feet. Subways and tunnels flooded. The water engulfed the construction site at Ground Zero. Lower Manhattan was plunged into darkness. Electricity generators exploded in spectacular fashion.
What's going on? I don't know what's going on. It's the hurricane.
Okay, so the news report that I wrote yesterday was based on that video. Okay, so that was Hurricane Sandy. What I'm going to show you now is I'm going to show you a video clip of a news report for Hurricane Michael. So this is going to be your basis for your work today. So this information might be slightly different based on the information that you have. But this just shows you how a news report is put together and then advertised for everyone to see on the TV. And that's going to be your challenge today when we come around to editing and improving our paragraph from yesterday. So let's have a watch of the Hurricane Michael news report.
Hurricane Michael is continuing to intensify as it's tracking north across the Gulf of Mexico. Looks like it will be a Category 3 hurricane as it makes landfall into the Florida Panhandle, Big Bend and Nature Coast regions late Wednesday local time. It's already brought stormy conditions into the Yucatan Peninsula of Mexico and heavy rain across western Cuba. Out across warm open waters now, though, an injection of energy that just allows that system to continue intensifying. It will start to push towards the shores late Tuesday, but through Wednesday is when we'll see those big storm surges really affecting the coast of Florida. Also, I think we're going to get some very poor weather for Alabama. Damaging winds and heavy rain could be the biggest issue as we look at Georgia and the Carolinas in the coming days, particularly for the Carolinas following on from the heavy rain after Hurricane Florence.
Okay, so what I would like you to consider in regards to the two videos are these three key elements to the news reports. So I'd like to have a think about the volume. Now the volume might be slightly different because obviously you're listening to this through my computer, which I've had to record on the screen. So the volume in itself might be a little bit quiet for you. But if you turn it up loud enough, you need to think about, well, can you hear that person speaking? Is it loud and clear for you? Is it too quiet for you to understand? Are there elements that dip out and dip in again? Is it too loud for you to understand? Then you need to consider what the pace was like. So the pace is to talk about the movement. So whether they were talking really, really quickly like I'm doing right now on this video, which some of you have told me I talk quite quickly, or is it going to be quite slow? Are there pauses? Are there gaps? Do they speak very slowly? And do the words come out very slowly? So you need to think about the pace from both those videos. You also need to sit and consider the expression and the emphasis of certain words. Did they have a specific expression when they talked about words, when they were talking about devastating facts, or when they were talking about something that might have happened to somebody? Did they use a specific expression? Were they very forward about their expressions? Did they emphasize any of the drama, any of the details of the elements of the news reports? So what I'd like you to do is pause the video. You can go back and rewind it and watch the two videos again because you should have this sheet in front of you. And I would like you to consider those three different elements for both your videos and just write down where you might pitch both of those videos. If you've got the sheet in front of you, you can draw a little arrow and write on top of each one. So for this one, we could write Hurricane Sandy. And then in your second one, you could write Hurricane Michael. And you might want to just dot on a point or an arrow as to where you think each video was placed in terms of the volume, pace, expression, and emphasis. Okay, so pause the video and have a go at those two tasks. Okay, so you might have thought that the volume for the first video, so for Hurricane Sandy, The volume dips in and out. There are times where you can hear the voiceover from the news report, which is nice and loud and clear. But then you have evidence footage that's come from other people that have witnessed the storms. So you might find that the static gets involved and actually gets a little bit too quiet. Now, the pace of it was very easy to follow. It wasn't too fast and it wasn't too slow. Okay, there were pauses in between to allow you to process the information. Now, I wouldn't say there was a lot of expression and emphasis. On some respects, I think it was a little bit dull. I think there were elements where they discussed certain parts where they might have paused for dramatic effect about the facts that they were giving us. But I think the visual representation of what the storm looked like and the damage it caused actually makes up for that expression, because you can see the videos of the explosions of the generators. You can see the water flooding in and flooding ground zero in New York. You can see it bursting through the doors. You can see it tipping over trees. So I think having the visual element to the background made up for that. Now, if we look at Hurricane Michael, because it's a normal speaking voice, there were moments where she dipped out and was very, very quiet, where she trailed off at the end of her sentences. So it might have been quite difficult to hear the point at the end of her sentences. Now, she didn't get too loud. There were no visuals behind her that were making any noises. So at no point did she get too loud. Now, there were some elements where I struggled to keep up myself, where she went blasting through some description about the movement of that hurricane as she saw it moving over the North American coast. So there were moments where she was quite fast, which could have been difficult to understand, but there were moments where she was slow. But you could see that those movements that she was making and her words had to match the movements of the hurricane satellite images from behind her. And that's part of their job. They have to match the descriptions with the physical representations behind them. Now, I wouldn't say there was lots of expression on her face, but there was emphasis using her hand gestures as she made her descriptions, but also in the way that she elongated some of her words that matched the flow of the weather patterns on the board. So you can see how the different visual representations also help as well. And I'm not going to ask you to create a map behind you for you to be able to do your news report on, or go and find video footage. But you can see how sometimes they go hand in hand. So we're going to have a quick recap out of our cohesive devices, because this is what you need to be remembering when we're going to edit and prove our work today. So we know that the 4 cohesive devices we've been looking at this week are our pronouns, our time adverbials, our place adverbials, and our conjunctions. Okay, so this was the paragraph that we finished on yesterday after we went through all that effort up-leveling our very opening sentences that we had. So you can see here how each of those skills flows each sentence into the other, and the information at the beginning links to the information as we work through the story. So we start to build a picture, and this is what you need to make sure that your news report does. I don't want static sentences of what happened, of this happened, then that happened, it caused this and it caused that. It needs to flow as almost as if you are telling a story, but you can't be as descriptive because it's not a story, if that makes sense. So we need to almost act out that we're telling a story of what it is that's happening, but we need to make sure that we're using these specific skills that keep it factual and keep it to the point, but it has to flow. Okay, so this was my example that I did yesterday. Okay, and we went through and looked at all of the different skills. Now I'm going to skip through all of the skills here so that you can see them again. I should have just screenshot the slide for you all to see, but I thought I'd make it a little bit more difficult for myself. Okay, so that is where I have used the skills within my paragraph based on Hurricane Sandy. Okay, so that was based purely on the video footage that we have just seen. Okay, so you can see how I added some additional information into that original news report because I felt like it needed a little bit more depth and understanding to what it was they were trying to report on. Now, I might look at this and think, well, I actually haven't included very many time adverbials. So I might need to go back and edit this work and see if I could maybe start a different sentence with a time adverbial. Now, I know I've got lots of facts in there. I also don't have very many place adverbials. So if I'm going to be talking about Hurricane Michael, and we're talking about it going through Yucatan, and we're talking about it going up through the coastlines, you might want to add some of that additional information. So you might be able to get some more place adverbials in yours. Now, I know for some of you that you can use your multi-clausal sentences, so that's a great opportunity for you to get your conjunctions in your sentences, okay? So what you need to do is you need to go back and have a look at your paragraph that you wrote yesterday for your news report, and you need to have a go at editing and improving it. Now, I've not edited mine today because I'm going to go back and edit mine and look at it when we come back to doing our news reports next week. But I know that you guys know how to edit and improve. So what you'll need to do, if I show you on the next slide, is you will need to think about the skills that you have already included. So just like I did on the slide before, okay, I created a coloured key at the bottom. So I know that I had to include pronouns, place adverbials, time adverbials, conjunctions, facts, reported speech, and direct speech, okay? Now, you might not want to include direct speech unless you are at school and have the possibility of interviewing somebody else who can make up for that reported speech. If you are at home and haven't got that opportunity to be able to interview that person, then you can take the directed speech out, okay? That would be an additional part of what a news report would include. So you need to take your paragraph and you need to write down that key along the bottom, and you need to identify where in your work you have included those skills, okay? If, like mine, you've noticed that you don't have very many time adverbials, you might think to yourself, well, do you know what? I need to go back and edit this now. I'm going to go and add some more time adverbials in. It might be that you take an entire sentence and you rearrange it completely to start with a time adverbial, okay? Once you've done that, you need to practice reading your report out loud, okay? This is not only going to practice your reading skills, but it's also going to sound to you the way it does on your paper. I realise that doesn't make sense. Let me try and re-explain that again. When you read your work out loud, you'll be able to see the flow of what you've written. There we go, I got there in the end. So you need to think, is what I'm reading clear? Is it cohesive? Does it flow? Does each sentence link from one sentence to the next sentence? Am I building on the point that I started to make? Am I starting to build a clearer picture of this hurricane? If you feel there are gaps that don't quite flow and don't quite make sense, then that's your opportunity to go back and think, well, what could I add in there that's going to make this flow better? How am I going to make this a little bit more cohesive? So use the success criteria to assess your own work. Okay, now that is this sheet here. So you have 2 copies of those at home where you've looked at it for Hurricane Sandy and Michael. You need to then use this when you're practicing reading your report out loud. Can you make certain parts of it louder and certain parts of it quieter for effect? Are you reading it too fast? Are you reading it too slow? Have you got too much information in there, which means you're reading it too quickly? And could you add any expression and emphasis on specific words or facts that's going to draw in those different emotions from the person listening and the person reading from the other side, okay? Now, the only reason why I get you to practice it out loud, okay, is it because it helps you understand the flow of your writing, okay? But as an additional challenge, if you are at home and you have the possibility of someone recording you reading out your news report and can send it in, that would be absolutely fantastic. Might even be able to sneak some of those up on our Twitter page. If you don't have the possibility of being able to record yourself, that's fine. I am more concerned about your writing of your report that you've written. So it's more important that you send that in to me to be able to read. But if you get the option to be able to video it and your parents can send it in to me via the emails when you send it in on Wednesday or Friday, then by all means, please have a go at doing that and then I can see what it's like. But if you've only got the opportunity to be able to write it down, make sure you go through and you edit and improve it. Once you've edited and improved it, you will need to rewrite the paragraph out in full so that you don't have any of the extra squiggly lines or any of your highlighting that you've done over it, so that you can very clearly see it and very clearly read it. Okay, so send me in a copy of what you've written. If you have the opportunity to be able to record it and send it in, then by all means, please attach that into the email as well. But have a go at practicing it, especially for those of you at school. You can work with a partner, look at each other's work. Does it make sense? Can you help them in any way? And then I look forward to having you reading all of your beautiful news reports later on this week. All right, good luck, year 5.